Hey, welcome to Tent Talk, the Farmers Market podcast. This is the show all about farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager, a farmer, or a food producer selling at farmers markets, or just a curious farmers market shopper, this is the podcast for you. Our guest this week is farmers market vendor and musician Candread Gadaga. On this episode, Candread talks to us about his journey from playing music at the farmers market to starting his own hot food vendor business to packaging his sauces for sale and his search for the perfect brick and mortar for his business Sabor Piri-Piri. Hi, I'm your host, Bridget Myers. I've spent years as an on-site farmers market manager, and I've done it all from pulling permits to vetting vendors.
I'm another one of your hosts, Justine Marzoni-Mead, farmers market vendor, hot sauce maker, and event facilitator for the Intense Conference.
And I'm Kat Fields-White, director of San Diego Markets, where I'm still an active farmers market manager, and founder of Intense Business, where we introduce the concept that passion should meet profit.
This week, we're joined by Candread Gadaga. Originally from Mozambique, Candread moved to the States in 2000 and eventually landed in sunny San Diego in 2011. When his band was invited to play at the farmers market, he finally found his community and was inspired to bring the flavors of home to the farmers market. Now Candread sells hot dishes, smoothies, and soon-to-be other items at 4 weekly markets.
All right, Candread, thank you for being here with us. Mm-hmm. We're going to just jump in and ask you to tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay.
So, where are you from, originally?
I'm originally
Not
from...
like Lemon Grove, but before that.
Okay, so, well, first of all, I want to give thanks for having me here.
Thank you.
Yes, we're excited.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Mozambique, Southeast Africa. Mm-hmm. I moved to the States in 2000. When I first came here, I landed in Boise, Idaho.
Oh, my.
Yeah, that's where I lived for good 11 years.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And then something brought me to San Diego. And here I am. That was in 2011.
What brought you to San Diego? Was it a girl? Was it a boy?
A person?
The sunshine?
No, it's music.
Oh, music. That's
that
good.
makes sense.
Music, yes.
Improved diversity? Boise can be a little...
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice place and all, but it is also a place of limitation for an artist.
Boise.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I
San
think
Diego's
so.
better music scene.
Yeah, better music scene and just, learn more. I think Boise gave me everything that he had to offer, and I give thanks for that. So it's just, a new beginnings for me.
New phase. That's good. And so you came here, you put a band together. Did you start at farmers markets as a musician or as a food maker?
No, I started at farmers market as a musician.
That's what I thought. I know you did in our farmers markets.
Yes.
We had you as a musician for a long time, actually, before we found out that you made fabulous African food.
Yes, indeed.
You had no
so,
idea.
what was the name of your band?
Rising Resistance.
Is it still the same name, or are you using a different name?
Using a different now.
Yeah.
Different name.
I thought so.
They're really good.
You want to plug it? What's the name?
Mutima.
Mutima.
Ooh, we'll put a link to your song.
Yeah, let's do that. That's a good idea.
Our listeners like music.
Yeah, you do beautiful music.
Oh, thank you.
And in your band, you play what?
I play guitar and sing.
And sing. Yeah. Candread has a beautiful voice, if you can't tell from his speaking voice. So at what point, when you were doing the music in the markets, and I'm assuming other places, booking gigs of other kinds, were you doing something else? Do you have a day job?
Yes, I actually worked at the Cheesecake Factory.
Oh.
Yeah, I worked
I
there.
did not know that about you. I love podcasts.
We're learning.
I worked at the Cheesecake Factory. I also worked for the city of Imperial Beach.
Oh, really? That's where I'm from.
Oh, right. I cleaned your, sewage line.
Tell my parents to. I'm
So impressed. I'm going to be impressed.
Clean.
Do you know that you had a fabulous chef and musician clean your sewer line?
Here's Candread. He's great.
Were you cooking
I see the
it?
whole process.
Yeah. Were you cooking at Cheesecake Factory or serving?
I was a food runner as well as bussing tables.
Oh, nice. So learning. We always say restaurant, people that come from any kind of restaurant make really good farmers market vendors just because it's, even though it's like a smaller scale.
You're dealing with the public. You understand the importance of transporting food hot. It's hot.
Yes.
Yeah, all those things.
Yeah.
Understand that there's permits and the like. So how did you end up making the transition then to being a food maker at the farmers market?
I made the transition because As a personal belief, I believe that every individual in this life, has a right to decide their own destiny. And so, working for a company or working for somebody, I knew for sure that wasn't going to give me a platform to decide my own destiny. So I decided to start a food business because I understand about food. It was something that I could easily do. So I made the transition from working at the cheesecake into making food.
That's great.
Yeah. Yourself.
How did you figure out all of that? How did you navigate permits and?
We always think that something is difficult to do, but when life pushes you to a corner, you figure out how to make things happen. My first step was to I did come to the farmers markets quite a bit and just talk to a few people that were already running the farmers markets. So it's basically trying to figure out how to get the first step, which was to register my business name.
Right.
And then work with the health department and get a permit and get a kitchen. So all that, it was really from having good people that were willing to help me. I think being at the farmers market as a musician, it really inspired me to make a move much quicker than I would have done if it wasn't for the farmers market. And part of that was just being able to play music and watching vendors come and go, watching what they're doing to set up what kind of equipment they had. And having a relationship with some of the vendors there, it allowed me to ask important questions like, what's my first step?
Right.
Yeah.
What kind of permits do I need? And so I have to give thanks for having the opportunity to play music at the farmers markets, because music brought about being able to do foods at the farmers market.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you find people pretty generous in terms of giving you answers and answering questions and things? We have a lot of people come to the desk and say, how do I find out how to do this? And we teach a lot through our Vendor 101 program, but we also oftentimes say you should just go talk to somebody else that's making jam. And they're always afraid to do that. They're like, oh, they're not going to want to talk to me because I'll be their competition.
Yeah.
And I think so. You get, and some people do react like that, but I think other people are actually surprisingly generous about what they'll share.
Now, I think you bring up a very good point. It is certainly something that most vendors might not give you all the information because they don't know what you're about to do with the information, right? So, but for me, because I had already established a relationship with the vendors, they had certain levels of trust, right?
Yeah, true.
And so it wasn't as difficult for me to get vital, important information to start my business.
Yeah.
Did anybody ever give you wrong information? Like when you ask your aunt for the recipe to her famous cornbread, she leaves out 2 ingredients, and yours is never as good as hers. Did you ever send you down the wrong path?
Yeah, that's also a great point.
He's like thinking back and like, people have been messing with me.
Yeah, well, here's what I encountered. Sometimes people would give you a very vague and general information without pinpointing on the exact question that you're asking. So they would just kind of give you everything and say it's up to you to decide what you want to do with that information or which information you want to take out of that. And so, I found that one being a bit difficult.
Yeah.
Narrow it down.
Yeah, you never know who's going to really want to mentor you and who's going to think, this guy's going to cut into my business.
Yeah.
And your
Luckily,
food's
you're
so
doing
good.
something so unique that's nobody could really do but you at the farmers market.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, can you kind of tell just our listeners, since we are all familiar with your food, but just explain like what your Sabor Piri-Piri is and like what kind of food you're serving there?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity because this is also a big question that I get from my customers, and they think that because we have curries, they think, well, it's Indian food. So I have to somewhat educate people on what Mozambican food looks like, right? So being born and raised in Mozambique, we grew up cooking a lot of... the way we cook in Mozambique is more like family-style cooking, so... We don't cook a lot of individual meals. So what happens, like you get a batch of maybe chicken stew or beef stew. You use spices, for example. We use a lot of Piri-Piri peppers, which the chili peppers, they call them bird's eye chili peppers that are mainly raised in South and East Africa. So Southeast Africa is well known for the Piri-Piri peppers, and that's why I named the business Sabor de Piri-Piri, which means flavor of the Piri-Piri. Oh. And Sabor is a Portuguese language because in Mozambique we were colonized by the Portuguese. And Mozambique is a very interesting area because you get the traditional Mozambican cuisine infused with Portuguese cuisine. And before that, we also in northern part of Mozambique there was a route of trading of spices and goods in the northern part of Mozambique. So then you also get a little bit of influence of the Arabs with the spices, and so I believe that's how the curry came about in Mozambique, and so that's why we also infuse a little bit of a curries in our cuisine. And so that always confuses people. So how can you have a curry in a Mozambican cooking? So Mozambique used to be one of the largest trading places in the northern part of Mozambique. That's why we got all these spices.
Oh, spices, yeah.
Interesting.
Beautiful food.
Yeah, it makes a nice cuisine.
Thank you.
I think peanuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Educate people on it, yeah. Can you talk about maybe some, because I know people that are just getting started being vendors at markets, or maybe they're selling at farmers markets, and you sell a nice variety of foods, and what are some challenges to selling hot food at the market? Because you cook everything fresh, you get there early, and you set up your grill, and you have your dishes there. So can you kind of talk about what are some things that you have found challenging, or maybe some ways that you've helped make it work for your business?
Yeah, maybe some solutions.
Yeah, some solutions. Yeah. You do such a good job.
Oh, thank you. I say one of my biggest challenge when I first started, I had a large menu.
Yeah.
And it was very confusing for people to decide what they wanted. Mm-hmm. And so what I learned from that, because of having a menu that required a lot of ingredients, I noticed that, I wasn't able to sell everything, So a lot of times I'd take the food back to the kitchen, and if the food was already cooked, I wasn't going to be able to sell it at the other market, because the quality is just not that great. Mm-hmm. And so I was having a lot of waste problems. And what I decided to do with that, I downsized my menu. And I made sure that if I'm using coconuts in one dish, then I can make another dish that I can also use coconut milk. If I'm using bell peppers in one, I can make another dish that I can use bell peppers. That way I can use maybe having no more than 10 ingredients, but that can be crossly used in other dishes, right?
Yeah, that's the brilliance even in a really small restaurant is making sure that you keep your ingredient list small, but you do enough variations that your menu seems varied.
Yeah. Kind of opposite of Cheesecake Factory.
Right.
That's true. Yeah, we have 40-page.
You learned.
You learned a lot.
Yeah, so what I would recommend for new vendors is to really come to the market and see what other vendors are offering. Mm-hmm. And just be really intelligent on how you can have a small menu but be effective on how you can attract your customers. Because sometimes it's not about having everything at your booth in order to make good business. It's just a matter of understanding that you got a 10 by 10 booth and it is not a large restaurant. What can you do with a 10 by 10?
Yeah. Only so much to fit in there.
That's
I think
true.
It's like maximizing what you are offering.
Well, the cool thing too, though, is just like in a really small restaurant, you tend to get fresher food. I mean, you don't have a walk-in.
Yeah.
You're not. Food is not getting old. You have to turn over your inventory really quickly because you don't have much space.
Right.
So it means that you're getting a lot of good food in there. Do you buy any of your ingredients from the farmers at the market?
No, the reason why I don't is that, for example, collard greens, right?
Here.
Collard greens. The farmers are not always going to have collard greens. Although I used to buy a lot of collard greens from a vendor
Inside
in City Heights Saturday Market. And so every once in a while I work with those guys, but they don't always have it. So now most of my produce is coming from a specialty produce.
Yeah, and Specialty does a good job, and they do go to a number of farmers markets, including farmers markets up the coast, and so it's almost farm direct.
Yeah, consistency I feel like would probably be helpful if you're making the same menu items. You have to rely on what the ingredients are that you're getting.
Yes.
Do you do any seasonal items on your menu, or is your menu consistent pretty much week to week?
For now it's consistent.
Yeah, that's good too, though, because I think sometimes customers appreciate they can come get what they like.
You have that craving.
Yeah.
Or we always say McDonald's has horrible food, but it's really consistent.
Yeah.
So that's what's made them big.
Yeah.
Sometimes
all
people just
about
want to
that.
know what they're going to get.
Yeah. Seasonal items. Can you talk about kind of forecasting? Forecasting being an operative word. So when you're planning your menu and how much food to bring, but then the weather is not so great, or maybe you're not sure how much foot traffic you're going to get at a new market. How do you kind of determine how much food to do? Because you know you're going to have some waste, but how does that process work with you?
Okay, so that process works. If I start a new market, I make sure that I communicate with the market personnel and see, well, how many people do you guys what's the average attendees that you can give me? And if they say, well, we think that we get about let's say 300 people, and then I say, how many food vendors do you have? I say we got 12 food vendors, and then I just try to get maybe 60 or 75% of those people. Maybe they're going to buy food, and then I divide that number by how many food vendors we have.
Yeah.
And then I bring food for that amount. And if I think that we're going to sell more, because most of my food now is prepared at the kitchen, when we come to the market, we're just serving it. So if I think that, well, maybe today we might have a big market, so I'll bring stuff that I can make the food at the market. But if I don't...
So you make some at the market.
Yeah. So I'll bring a fresh, prepped produce or pre-baked chicken, but I have the sauces already made. At that point, all I need to do is just kind of put things together. It won't take about 20 minutes to do that. So that saves me money, because I know that if I don't sell this stuff, it's not cooked. I can take it back to the kitchen and use it for the next day.
Yeah.
Cool. So you've been doing your thing in the market since 2016?
2016, yes.
Great. So, and I mean, I love your food. I know that Dave eats your food probably like at least twice a week.
Jerome too. Jerome, anytime you can get there.
Yeah.
But you're doing some new stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about what you have planned for the future now that you're doing smoothies and tea at some farmers markets?
And some grocery.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about the Piri-Piri hot sauce, even though it's been a challenge to produce that sauce.
I have to confess that I have constantly poked Candread for the last year and a half.
It's so
Make
good.
a grocery item, bottle that sauce, because the sauce is so insanely good.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you guys' support and also that pressuring, because it tells me that, we got a great product. We just, we need to make it happen. So, to directly answer your question, grocery items, I think the reason why I've been focusing on that is because, cooking food and this and that, it's something that everybody can do, right? But, or maybe not.
Have you ever gone to Bridget's house for dinner?
One day I'll cook you something and you can tell me.
She has a few specialties.
Okay.
Limited
Spaghetti
repertoire. She has a limited menu.
Spaghetti tacos.
Yeah, she understands the brilliance of a limited menu.
Okay.
Candread doesn't want my spaghetti
Peanut butter and
tacos.
jelly sandwich.
We can do that.
Pancakes, okay?
So I
Many
guess
people can cook.
some people, but that's why I'm here to help.
That's
Yes.
right. Exactly right.
So I guess because of being a creative person, I don't like being stuck in one position. So cooking, I realized that people like this sauce. Why can't I put this sauce in jars and sell it? So that's why I've been inspired to do a Piri-Piri hot sauce and peanut curry sauce.
And where are you at with that? Are you looking to co-pack that for our listeners who don't know?
Yeah, we're definitely looking to co-pack that and basically create an item that we can put in our grocery stores.
Great.
And I think a lot of people get lost in how do you create an item that you can sell it at a grocery stores, right?
Yeah.
And I get lost with that too, but I've learned so far that you can either do it yourself or you can find a co-packing company that can produce the item for you, and at that point, then it will be legal. The state gives you a permission to do so.
Well, we hope that you figure that out soon so we can have your sauce.
Yeah, but even with that, now I am still able to do to produce a sauce and do direct sales.
Great.
Right.
Yeah, I just can't have somebody else selling it.
Well, do you even have time? How many markets are you in every week?
4 markets and doing some special events here and there.
Do you still do music?
Not as much. Not as much. But, we need to make sure that Sabori Piri-Piri is in a good standing grounds, and then we'll return to music.
Yeah.
And am I right that you're looking for a brick and mortar? Is
Yes.
that something that is on the horizon?
That is something that's on the horizon because we've been doing Sabori Piri-Piri at the markets for 2.5 years, and I want to believe that people have been responding very well to the food, and they're looking for a brick and mortar place. And because of that, I am certain that if we do a brick and mortar, we'll have a good response from the community.
Very cool. Is there a spot or a specific neighborhood that you think that you'd like to open it in?
Well, I have to say, North Park has been
That's a great spot,
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, North Park's a great
Yeah.
spot for restaurants and a variety of restaurants. I feel like our neighborhood, that's where our office is. And that's where we live, actually, and that's where Bridget lives.
We're here right now.
That's right, we're in North
There
Park.
already are some really amazing African restaurants
Yeah.
here in North
Nearby.
Park.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
community
Yeah.
really responds really well to that and
Yeah.
wants it.
Diversity of food. I think there's North
Yeah.
Parkians are food people, and they're open to a
Yeah.
variety of foods. And
They like
you've
good
got a
food.
reputation here because you've been at the market in North Park.
Yeah, that's true. So North Park's certainly the first place that I would look into.
I mean, if you have millions and millions of dollars for rent, Little Italy would also be good.
Casually have a bag of money lying around.
Literally. That's all on you, Kat.
Yeah, figure
That's
it
right, I'll
out,
keep an eye
Kat.
out. I'll keep an eye out.
I feel, but honestly, even though Little Lily's a hot place, a hot restaurant place right now, it's like the community. I feel like we have a relationship with Candread and like
In North Park.
Yeah, North
Yeah.
Park, and you have to go when you're looking for a brick and mortar. Like that's a factor. You can land in a place where it's just a hot restaurant district, and that can work. But it can also like work against you because there's so many restaurants. Whereas
Yeah.
North Park is like, I feel like we're very particular about like what works here. And
Sure.
so it's nice to have that community already like kind of started.
It's also good because you have such a good relationship with your customers at the market, and I think we have a handful of food vendors where part of their sales is about the food, but a lot of their sales is about the relationships,
Yeah.
about how they talk to customers and how they form relationships with their regulars. And I think if you look at Little Italy, which is a huge restaurant district, but has a big tourist part of their demographic, and you look at North Park where it's so much community, I think somebody that is good at developing relationships has sort of a better shot in somewhere like North Park where they get to know you and they come back partly because they are after that flavor and they need that piri-piri sauce, but also because they like to say hi to the person that owns it.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you on that.
Yeah, when you think about the places that you go to eat, I mean, I know I go to places where, of course, the food
I'm
is
back
good.
at
I'm not
Cardamom
gonna-
for breakfast because
Yeah.
I know Joanne, you know?
I'm not going to eat terrible food, but it's like I like to go to a place where I'm comfortable,
Yeah.
and I feel like this guy always sound like a crazy person when I tell people to get Candread's food because I'm like, he's just a really like wonderful guy, and you can like taste his personality when you eat his food, and it sounds weird, but I'm like, he's always so happy, and it's like those vendors that are just like always have a, they're always happy even when it's like pouring rain or whatever, and they're like, hey, we're all here, like we're happy to be here.
Let's have fun.
And so the food just tastes better. It really does.
true.
So, yeah.
When you're editing, Justine, can you insert that little happily jingly sound? That magic sound.
Sparkle.
Yeah.
Best.
Yeah.
Rain or shine here.
That's right.
I know. It's been a little rainy lately too, so.
Candread,
Yeah.
since you've been in the farmers market for like a couple years now, do you ever get, this is like kind of a hard question, do you ever get like bummed or like sick of the farmers market? Do you ever have to like get yourself like pumped up to be like, all right, another day at the office? Like, do you have to like get yourself excited, or do you still like feel excited every day when you go to the market?
That's a great question.
You can be honest too.
Yeah, I think for the most part, so 90% of my time I'm excited.
Yeah, it's not a bad ratio.
Yeah, the only times that, because farmers markets can be such a long day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole day event, 12, 16 hours. The only times that I don't really get excited is when I have to go back to the kitchen and prep for the next day.
Oh, so 2 markets in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We're doing that Clopen. We were just talking about
Yeah,
that.
we used to have a Tuesday, a Thursday, and a Saturday market, and we made the I think good long-term decision, but I kind of forgot about the part where we have a market that goes late at night on Tuesday and then one that opens early on Wednesday, as you're well aware. That's that can be painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you know, it's like I always look at challenges as think of if you're climbing a mountain. There's going to be trees around your way, there's going to be branches and this and that. But if your goal is to get to the top of the mountain, then therefore those trees and branches, you kind of overlook them. They're really not there because your goal is to get to the top of the mountain. So every time I'm having a little challenge, I just look at the top of the mountain like, oh, you know, it's going to be a little rough. But I know that tomorrow I'm going to be in much better position.
Just look past those trees.
Yeah.
Just write that
That's
down.
profound.
Just carry that
Maybe
around.
we should make a
with us.
poster out of that.
Yes.
Inspirational. Yeah, David and I always joke about the farmer's market. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you have to go to soccer practice. Like, you don't want to go, but then when you get there, you have a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's always like, oh, I don't want to go. I'm like, once you're there, you'll have fun. And then it's true.
Yeah.
And he loves
Isn't
it every
that
day.
true of so many things?
So many things.
Yeah, just have to get yourself there.
Once you get there,
And you
it's a
see
good
all your
time.
friends.
Yeah.
See the familiar people.
That's good.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up too, because I think what happens at the farmers market, there's this family thing happening.
Definitely.
Like
Yeah.
when somebody like David shows up at my booth, I'm like, oh, this guy. Let's talk about life a little bit.
Yeah.
And so just having that a close relationship with your co-workers, it works. It makes everything work, you know.
And being a small business owner is hard. And I think that it's such a unique situation to be able to go to the farmer's market and see a whole bunch of other small business owners.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you know, you're at the kitchen, you're here, you're there, you're buying supplies. You're not running into the people that have those same kind of challenges that you have and that can really understand your life.
Yeah.
So the farmer's market is cool because you're there talking to people. You and Dave can talk and completely understand each other about, you know, what's going on with Mr. Copacker and you know, how's your day today and kind of ripping the tent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my tent
For
is
sure.
broken. It's like, oh, I know how
I
that is.
know
Or
that.
have like a helpful tip. Because I feel like owning a business is sometimes lonely,
It is
you know?
lonely,
And if like you spend too much time just by yourself and no one is understanding you,
Yeah.
it can probably wear you down a little bit. So it's
Spend
nice
a lot
to
of
be-
time talking to yourself in the van.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I also have to say that at least you guys have done a great job with being available. Also, just being in the vendors' people's life, right? Making sure that you guys are available to talk about things, and also making vendors feel comfortable that not only am I going to the place of business, but it's also a place of a family relationship.
Right.
You know? So I don't know how many other markets actually having a conversations like this, but this actually does bring people together. It brings me. I feel like I'm not only here to do business, but I'm here to co-work with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
We're on the same team. We've
Yeah.
got each other's back.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. We like to try to like make that relationship kind of like clear, especially to new vendors, because people would never really know, like, are you my boss? Are you my landlord? Like, it's a tricky relationship. Both. And we can
your
also
mom.
and your mom. I mean, really, it's like, do you need a hug? Like, I'll do that. Like,
And also, like, the tax man.
the tax man, kind of the
We
muscle.
fill so many
Yes.
Yeah.
Kind of the sounding board, and people, you know,
Yeah.
vent at us and stuff. So it's, you know, it's
Try to nurture.
complicated, but it's, I mean, I feel like it's an important relationship to have and to keep strong.
Well, we're all in it together. I mean, to create a good market that's going to attract customers and make them feel like it's a happy place to come back to,
Yeah.
everybody's got to be working towards the same goals.
Yeah.
We're all heading towards the top of that same mountain.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
It's there. Awesome.
All right, well, we love to wrap up our little podcast every week with a question of the week. And this one's kind of vague, but I was thinking because you're a musician and we all spend a lot of time at the farmers markets, and I think we can all agree that having music at the market does really make a
Huge.
difference.
Huge difference,
Just
yeah.
adds a vibe. It, you know, kind of, especially on those days where maybe you don't want to be there, it can like kind of make you, you know, it helps you like get in the zone a little bit. So,
Yeah.
and we can make this more specific, but I was thinking if we have any tips for musicians at the market, kind of how to bring that vibe or what not to do or what they should do.
So what's our question of the week?
What is a tip that you could give for either a prospective musician at the farmers market, or for farmers market managers looking to book talent, what should they look for? What are things that musicians should bring to the farmers market in terms of vibe?
Like what has worked.
Right.
I know what Kat's going to talk about.
What am I going to talk about? Liking big rhythm and blues bands or really good jazz singers?
Don't get us started on Cat. You know Cat Willie Lee, the band that has played at the market for like 10 years. We'll Love a Lot. Mm-hmm. They're so loud. They're so great, but the vendors for years have complained like they're too loud. Like tell them to turn it down. And Kat's like, no, I like them loud. The people like it. It brings up shoppers. Everyone can hear
energy.
People can hear them from 6 blocks down the street, which is true. And people come over. Oh, I didn't know a market was happening.
Yeah, they come over.
And she's like, because you heard the music. You're here. So yeah.
Oh, man.
So my tip is, keep it loud, but also keep it clean.
Yeah.
We did have somebody complain recently because we've got a musician that likes to improvise on his lyrics. And it was over the holiday season, and so he made up some lyrics about reindeers doing something to other reindeers and this kind of thing. And apparently we had a young shopper that her mother assures us was traumatized. So yeah, keep it clean. It's a family event.
That's good too. What do you think, Candread? What's worked well for you working at or playing music at the markets?
I mean, you guys all have great points because I've been on, both ends of the spectrum there. I've played music at the markets where other vendors will say, well, your music is a bit loud. Sometimes I'll take it personal, but when I started being a vendor at the market, I was like,
Then you understand.
That is a little loud.
I'm trying to...
It's a delicate balance.
It is. So I would say that one thing that I've always done is if I'm playing music at close to somebody, I'll play a couple tunes and then I'll take a little break and consult with them and see how we doing. Is the music a bit loud? If they say it's a little loud, I'll turn it down a bit. Mm-hmm. Because, we have to make sure that you and the vendor, you're both being constructive at the market,
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so for musicians, I would recommend playing music that is tasteful to the vendors as well as to the market people. I like upbeat music because it helps people be in a good mood.
Yeah.
And just it cheers people up,
Yeah.
Then they want to shop more and they want to stay at the
That's
market.
right. They want to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I would have to say.
Work together. Yeah, it is like a balancing act, I think. As a shopper at other farmers markets, when I go there, I'm always like, if there's no music, I'm like, oh, please get a musician. Coming from a restaurant family, I don't know, Kat had a restaurant when my sister and I were young, and so now
I didn't know this.
Yeah, we grew up in the kitchen. My sister and I were.
Kitchen
It's not child labor if it's your own child. That's what she told me all the time.
That's how it works.
Yeah, so we bust tables when we were young children and grew into fine restaurant managers.
And really, anybody would be proud to employ them because they've got such a good work ethic for having been bussing tables over
As both of you know, as Kat's vendors, she doesn't take I have the flu as an excuse, and you are going to come to work no matter what. Anyways, yeah, so the music I think is important because we always, if we go to a restaurant, we're like, oh, there's no music in here, this is terrible. It like kills the vibe. So, but as a shopper, especially like when I'm with my kids, I know I went to the Ballard Farmers Market when we were on vacation, and I was having like my youngest was 1 and he was cranky, and I was like, I want to check this market out, but it's terrible. And the musicians, I took him out of the pad carrier and I put him down, and the musicians like came over, noticed that he was a little cranky, and they were playing their guitar right to him and singing kind of kid-friendly songs, and his whole mood completely changed around, turned completely around. He was dancing. They had like a balloon guy too, which we don't do in our markets, but they gave him a little balloon with the band, and they let him like play on a bongo and stuff. And he got in a great mood. And then like on a practical side, I stayed at the market and I bought so much stuff because the musician turned his mood around. So I feel like musicians have a really important role at the market.
Yeah.
They just shape the whole mood of the market.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's important. It can translate into actual like dollars being spent. So
it's true.
yeah, I would say the
about
tip
that.
is to notice the shopper's mood.
And interact.
Interact with them. Yeah. What do you think, Justin?
I love having musicians at the market too, and I think that assessing your volume level is really important. Another thing I would say in terms of like making friends with vendors and kind of like getting along with everyone is making sure that you have enough like in your repertoire to be able to
that was going to be my other
cover a full days at the farmer's market, because if I have to hear a musician play Hotel California like 4 times during the farmer's market shift, it's going to start to drive me crazy. And although shoppers may walk by once or twice and they won't notice if you're playing the same songs over and over again, the vendors are going to start pulling out their hair. So, you know, when you're booking talent, or when you are somebody who wants to play at the farmer's market, make sure that you have more than like 12 songs.
Do you remember Santiago?
Yes.
Santiago had like 5 songs.
No, he would just play the same 5-minute song over and over again.
The vendors hated it.
Yeah.
And he had a box drum, and it was like, you know, if you're going to be that kind of musician, you got to
Just learn more songs.
Yeah, just learn more
Absolutely.
songs.
covers. Do some
Look them
covers
up on
that's fine.
YouTube. Learn those chords.
That's good
Take
advice.
requests.
Yeah.
So that's my advice.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
absolutely
We
right
do
about
love
that.
music at the markets, though.
Yeah. Well, Candread, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to thank you for having me here. It's been a pleasure.
Sure.
I'm so excited.
Is there
to
anything
have
we
you
didn't
here.
ask you that we should have? Is there something you really wanted to tell the farmers market audience?
No, I just want to thank all the farmers markets for really supporting all the markets, because it's a really community place. You know, it takes the village to really grow these markets. So I want to give thanks to everybody that makes a point to show up at the markets, because without them, we wouldn't be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, shoppers are so important.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
So-
you.
Thank you. Hey, we'll see you tomorrow at the market.
Yeah.
I'll be there, rain or shine.
That's right.
Yeah.
It
It's not
should
supposed to
shine
rain. It's supposed to
tomorrow.
be shiny all week.
Yes, okay.
We're stalking the forecast, although what good does that do? It's
Yeah.
like
No,
it's not.
they
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
never-
So can I add more one thing?
Yeah, of
Add
course.
one more thing?
So
Okay.
rolling.
You look like you wanted to. That's why I said, is there something that we
Yeah.
didn't ask you? Because you look like you had something on the tip
Yeah,
of your
there's.
tongue.
I think a lot of vendors, we take this for granted, right? Because we forget to thank the markets, like you guys.
Huh.
Yeah, the reason why I've been successful is because you believe that this guy's product will do well. And so it is just a great platform for anybody who has an idea to plant that idea and grow from that. Because otherwise, I don't know a lot of people that have the $70,000, the $100,000 to go straight into a restaurant. And at the same time, too, you don't really want to do that, because you want to make sure that your product is... people are buying it. So I would really want to give thanks to you, Kat, for bringing me in as a musician, for having me join the markets, because that has been a life changer for me. So I give thanks to the team that make the markets happen.
That's nice.
Yeah.
People get
so
busy
nice
and
to
they
hear.
forget to say that. Thank you so much.
They just forget.
Yeah, they're all feeling it.
It's not that they're not great.
It's so nice.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Candread.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yes. All right, we'll
All
see
right.
you in 13 hours.
Sounds good to me.
Hey, thanks for listening along. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, and tell us how you liked today's episode. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the next one. And if you want more farmers market tips, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter at intensebusiness.com and follow us on Instagram at intensebusiness. Remember, that's INTENTS business. The 2019 Intense Conference will be held in San Diego, February 24th through the 26th. It's coming right up, but you can still register today on our website, intensebusiness.com.
This podcast is produced by Intense Business, where passion meets profit. Today's episode was recorded and edited by Justine Marzoni Mead. Original music by David Mead. Special thanks to our guests, Candread Gadaga and San Diego Markets.